Good afternoon and welcome to the Application Portfolio Management webinar. My name is Tom de Ridder. I'm a Blue Dolphin platform architect with Value Blue. I'm also a pre-sales consultant. And with me is my colleague, Jelle Visser.
Hi, welcome all. My name is Jelle Visser. I'm Chief Commercial Officer at Value Blue. I will be supporting Tom today by answering the questions that we have. You can send them in. Tom will explain how in a minute. So if you have any questions, I will look at them, I will prioritize them, and I will define if we can ask them right away or if we ask them after the webinar. I'll make sure that you all get an answer. And that's it. Let's go on.
All right, so some practical things. Jelle talked about it. You can ask questions by using the question mark icon in GoToWebinar on the right side of the screen. You can type questions there, and we'll try to answer them after the first part of the webinar is over. We also have a replay available as soon as the webinar is ended. You'll be receiving mails about that. Also, we'd really like to get evaluation forms from you because your feedback enables us to improve our webinars. So this webinar is about application portfolio management. Let's first talk about where do we position application portfolio management. And we position it within the realm of what we call agile business transformation. Agile business transformation is basically a means of getting your business goals and objectives into a strategy and getting that strategy into a capability model, a set of capabilities that your organization uses to execute its goals and mission and vision. What agile business transformation tries to do is to enhance or extend your capability set. And it does it so by creating a high-level roadmap of where you want to end up. So there's going to be a future state and a current state. And to support those capabilities, we have several layers of the architecture, like business processes, applications, data, and infrastructure, which all support the capabilities of your organization. And Blue Dolphin has some use cases to fill in those different layers of architecture. For example, we use business process management for business processes through the use of BPMN, application portfolio management for application management, and this is where this webinar is all about. We use master data management using our data module to fulfill master data management. And also you'll have that in a current state, and you obviously want to go to a future state or another state to increase your capabilities. And getting there from current state to future state is done by using projects, creating projects and executing projects. And those projects are then handled also through another use case of Blue Dolphin, which is project portfolio management. And once you get from your current state to future state, you'll update the current state with your future state, and that cycle starts all over again. So that's where we position application portfolio management from within our agile business transformation portfolio. Application portfolio management. Now, I will be switching to Blue Dolphin. What is application portfolio management, and why would you want to do it? We've defined the goals of application portfolio management into 3 different layers: operational, tactical, and strategic. Start with the operational goals. You want to have insight in one central application repository. So a single list of all the applications that you have in your organizations. And if you have that list, you're able to create proposals for improvement based upon something called a business risk, which is a value that we will show you later on how to create using application portfolio management. And from within that business risk, you're able to enhance your application repository on an operational level. The next level, that is a goal, is the tactical level. And the tactical level will allow you to generate some road mapping possibilities. For example, to create proposals for improvement based on the business risk as well as the business value, which is another score that we will explain in this is a part of our application portfolio management use case. It gets some insights into functional application fit from a business perspective. So how well does your applications support your business processes? You'll get insight into rationalization and consolidation opportunities for your application landscape. And then the strategic level, you'll have improved organizational capabilities. You'll increase alignment between business and IT because you have a link between application landscape, business processes, and capabilities. And you'll be able to better estimate your future application need and costs, and you'll be able to work towards your envisioned architecture. To sum this up, the ultimate goal of APM is to create project proposals that either decrease the business risk for applications or increase the business value. So how do we accomplish this? First of all, what do we need if we want to start using APM? We'll be using Archimate objects, obviously. The first one, obviously, will be an application component. Most of our Blue Dolphin customers are using those kinds of components. You'll need application functions, you'll need business processes, you'll need capabilities from the strategy layer, and then to create these project proposals and execute the project proposals, you'll need projects, although that is not officially a part of APM. So this is our basic convention that we'll be using throughout the demonstration. So that's for the how. The how is basically where we've come up with a growth model. And the growth model consists of 4 phases within application portfolio management. Let's go through them a little bit. In phase 1, we'll just start with application components. And we'll basically start out with a list of a central application repository of all your applications. And through the use of questionnaires and answering some questions, we are able to calculate a business risk score per application. On the next phase, we'll be introducing capabilities and introducing a capability model. And you'll be able to map your app capabilities versus your applications. So you'll be able to calculate a business risk score per capability. On phase 3, we are adding application functions. And by adding application functions, you'll know what functional application need there is per capability. And you already are able to create some rationalization potential because you can see functional overlap between applications, for example. The final phase, the phase 4, is adding business processes. And that will allow you to see how an organization works versus what application needs there are. In this phase, we're also adding the business value score. And by combining the business value and the business risk, you're able to create consolidation potential. So there's even more options to enhance your application landscape. Let's try the 5th phase, by the way, is the phase that's not really an APM phase, but is a phase where you create your APM project proposals and you execute them in order to go to a future state. The first phase is a phase where we're going to be needing an application list, an application repository. So how do you start out with an application repository? Basically, just start with any list that you have. A lot of organizations already have a list of applications, whether it's Excel sheets or other information or ITSM tools that can get you going. We think it's even good if you start with 70 to 80%. That's all right. You don't need to go to 100% to make this work, but it's usually important from something that you have already. And if you have this list, you can create what we call an application portfolio. So here's the application portfolio overview for this example. We are in Liberty Energy, which is a fictional energy supplier, and this is the entire landscape for that organization. It's divided in a couple of different sectors or different domains. And as with Blue Dolphin, you can add any information to a particular object, such as we've done here. Starting off with an application portfolio can be really easy. Just some basic information that you need to get started. For example, the name of the application, maybe the supplier, the version, a little bit of a description on what the application does. And you'll need to know who, for example, is the application owner or the application administrator. As long as you know people that know something about the application and you've put that into Blue Dolphin, you are then able to extend the information on those objects. For example, by using guest links. For those who are not familiar with guest links allow you to create a separate page for people to enter information on objects in Blue Dolphin. For example, if I create a guest link and I'll put in read and write, and I'll say 2 weeks, and I'll send it out to my colleague Jelle. Then Jelle will get a link, get an email with a link inside, and that link inside will look like something like this. And basically, it's a link where you can fill out all the information or change or add the information on the application that he's given the link for. So let's say that the version is 2.0, and it's a great application. So Jelle will save it as his name, and then he deletes the link, clicks the link, and then in Blue Dolphin, that information will be added to that particular object. You see the application version here and the remarks here. So this is actually a great way to involve people outside of Blue Dolphin who don't have a Blue Dolphin account to add information to your objects. And particularly with applications, it can be real easy to get multiple or tens of hundreds of applications, get more information on them. So once you get that initial idea, you get that initial information, we can then start adding information about the APM phase 1. APM phase 1 consists of a couple of questions, where a couple of some of these questions will be used to calculate the business risk. For example, what the application type is, what the rough annual cost is for this application, whether the application is end of life, whether the application is end of service, whether application management has been in place or that there's no application management at all, well, how the supplier support is done, if it's really good or it's really bad, and if the application is customized, and to go into some financial stuff, whether there's a contract for it, when it starts, when it will end. We also added some information on the incidents here coming from our ITSM system. So we know how much incidents each of these applications will have over a quarterly period, and whether the application conforms to target architecture. Now, using that information, we are able to calculate a business risk score. And I've put together a report outlining the business risk for all the applications within this particular customer. So using Power BI here with our data feed to visualize some of the information in Blue Dolphin. In here we have the business risk, which is also represented by a red, orange, and a green indicator, where red, high, means bad, and green is better. So the lower the business risk you have, the better it is. And this will allow you immediately to have a quick peek at some of the red applications, or maybe some of the orange, and you'll immediately be able to see where that application is a risk. For example, it could be that it's end of life and we don't know about it, or it could be that the supplier support is real bad, or there's no supplier support at all. These are all things that you could use and evaluate to change the situation for that application, or maybe already start thinking about phasing out that application. Also, in phase 1, you'll obviously be able to add multiple information for this for these applications, but what we actually need are these questions to these answers. I think, like I mentioned before, the business risk is standardized from our part, but you can add your own questions to it and your own ratios and your own weights. If you have other questions or you have other information that you want to base a business risk on, you could add this to it. The system is set up so that it would be able to handle that. Moving forward to the second phase, where we add capabilities. Well, obviously, when talking about capabilities, we'll need a capability model. So here is the capability model for this particular customer. It's an energy delivery company, so obviously its most important value chain is the chain that does the actual energy delivery, which is the chain on top here, and below are some capabilities which are more supporting. Through the use of a capability model, we are able to begin to draw the first concept of something what we call an application portfolio model. And that is achieved by connecting these capabilities to applications. So for example, this particular capability is supported by these applications. Optionally, in this phase, you can also add the realization by application functions and the application by business processes, although it's not strictly needed in this phase. And once you connect these with applications, these capabilities, you'll be able to generate something like this, an application portfolio model, which in this first phase is only in the second phase. So here's the applications that support this capability, and then later on we'll see the application functions and business processes and how they interact together with that particular capability. Because we've connected capabilities and applications, we are also able to take a look at a capability business risk, which is basically the business risk which we have on capabilities because of the applications connected to the capabilities. So once again, you'll see a list of red, orange, and green. Well, red being bad, green being better. And obviously, you can also see that there's already one capability which is kind of in trouble because it contains applications that have a high business risk. So same thing as with the applications, but you can now make decisions based on capabilities instead of just applications, which allows you to also go dig deeper into the problems within a certain capability. Then going through phase 3, explain something about how do I create a capability model. Creating a capability model could be done in either one of two ways. The easiest way, the easiest way is the way where a capability model is already in a reference model for the branch or vertical that your organization is in. So for example, if you're in healthcare or you're in municipalities or government, usually there is a reference model, and most of the times that also contains a capability model. If there's no capability model at all, it is up to your enterprise architect along with the executive level of your organization to create a capability model and use that in this particular situation. So then adding application functions.
Tom.
To add application functions, you'll need an application function model. So here we have an application function model for this particular organization. And what we've done here is we've created these application functions and we've connected these application functions to capabilities, but also connect them to applications. So we know which application uses what application function. And like you probably know, or some of you know in Blue Dolphin, is that using these visualizations, you can also create what we call conditional layouts on top of it. For example, these are all the applications that are supporting application functions. Now you can immediately see here that there are multiple applications fulfilling the same application function. This immediately can tend to function overlap. For example, if I have two applications which support the commodity trading risk management functionality, I could try and get to see if one of them is maybe not used at all, or maybe we can go to one of these applications instead of two of them. So this is achieved by connecting applications to application functions. And obviously that will allow you to create something that we call a functionality overlap view.
Tom, there is a question about this.
Okay.
Real quick, the questions comes back to both models.
Mm-hmm.
If there is something like a reference model or not really, but there's something like a closely related organization type that has a reference model, is it also possible to use that model and to sort of refurbish it so that it fits your needs?
Sure.
The same goes for functionality models.
Yeah, good one. Yeah, you can use any functionality model or a capability model that you have, and then obviously change or add to that and make that model your own. Usually this is what a lot of organizations do. They take a reference model and change it up a little bit so it matches their situation exactly. But that is just the way to do it, yes.
Okay, it makes it easier than starting from scratch, basically, right?
It definitely does. There's usually always something somewhere. So you never have to really start from scratch, but it's really useful if you adapt it to your own situation.
Okay, and then there's another question from Hans, and he asked, why are you using business processes in your model instead of business functions?
Well, we're using business processes because that's what we can immediately use in our business process modeling. So we can easily go into a deeper level for business process management in our BPMN models. So that's why we're using business processes to get that going.
Okay, clear. I think that answers both questions. Thank you. Go on.
All right. So from the application function model, and having that connected to applications, we can go into the application function overlap view. So I've selected a capability here, and that capability has some applications, and those applications have certain application functions. So using these views, you can see where there's overlap in application functionality. For example, here you see that the energy management functionality is represented or supplied by at least 3 applications, which you see here in green. So it could very well be that there's overlap in functionality. So this is already some entry point towards maybe a rationalization decision on either one of these 3 applications. You'll also see a yellow dot here, and basically that means that this application, Allegro Horizon, does support energy management, but we are not using it actively in our current organization. So you can take this out of the equation here. So you can do this on a capability level. You can do it for all the functionalities, but that will give you a really large grid. So it's better to focus on specific areas. That's why we chose the capability to focus on an area of applications and application functions. So when you have this, you can then go to phase 3 of your application portfolio model, where you now know the applications and the application functions for this particular capability. And then the only thing that needs to be done in phase 4 is adding business processes. So let's look at that. And I think the question for how do you create an application function model has been answered. I think the question was on point there. Use a reference model or adapt a reference model or create the model yourself. So by adding business processes, we'll need a business process model. The business process model is here we have a subset of business processes. And obviously, it has the same benefits as on one of the other views. You can say which applications are supporting the business processes, for example, in the using conditional layout. And you'll see that there's multiple applications supporting the business process, which is normal. Most business processes use multiple applications to be executed. But what we add here is APM phase 4. And we are adding the connection between application functions and business processes. So, for example, for this particular process, we said, well, there's 2 application functions that are needed in this business process. What we also do is that we have a list. We have a list of, I can't find it now. Let me see, we have a list of questions in APM phase 4. I just need to look at it. Here we go. So in those lists and those questions that we ask to create a business value, there are 4 questions there, and they all relate to the relationships between the application function and the business process. For example, right here, we're looking at the application function energy management in regards to the distribution generation of electricity as a business process. And we'll ask to what extent the application function covers the needed functionality for this process. And it could runs from excellent to very poor. In this case, it's poor. The extent to which the application function is fully utilized by a business process, also it's poor here. The extent to which the application function is user-friendly to the business process, it's fairly business friendly here. And the extent to which the application function is well documented with regards to the business process. Now, if we start answering those questions, we'll be able to calculate what we call a business value. And that business value is also represented in one of the reports here. And it's also laid out per capability. For example, the power generation and trading capability has a couple of applications and its corresponding business values. So for example, see here that the higher is better. So the green ones are better than the red ones, and lower business value, well, obviously you want as high business value as you really want, as you really need. So you're able to see the business value per application, per capability. You can also bring that in here, so you see it per particular capability. And you also know what capabilities are adding more business value to your organization than other capabilities. Obviously, there will be some capabilities, mainly the supporting ones, which might not add a lot of business value. But if you look at your core capabilities, then it's likely that those will be supplying more business value to your organization. Now that we have connected the business processes as well, we can also go and finish our application portfolio management model for power generation and trading. And we have a full stack of applications and application functions and business processes connected. Because we have applications connected to application functions, connected to business processes, and the business risk is calculated per application, and the business values is calculated basically by using a function with combination for a business process, we can also map that out in our application matrix. So here we have a matrix with, well, basically a subset of our applications on it. And these applications are represented by different colors. The size is the annual cost. And the placement of the application within the quadrants is actually quite important, because obviously you're looking for applications that have high business value and have low business risk. To the left, to the right is lower business risk, and to the left is higher business risk. So this quadrant here, the upper right quadrant, is a quadrant where your applications should be. They're actually in the quadrant we call preserve these applications. So these are fine. Then the quadrant where you don't want to have your applications is the lower left quadrant. And these contain applications with a high business risk, but with a lower business value. For example, this application here is a pretty expensive application, but could have more business value or have lower risk, or both of them. Then the left upper quadrant is a quadrant where you have high business value, but also high business risk. So you should work towards decreasing business risk here. And then the right lower quadrant is a quadrant that has low business risk, but also low business value. Depending on the capability, this could be okay, or you could try and increase business value here, either by introducing other applications or by, for example, enhancing the way your users work with the application. So going back to that last phase, in this phase, you'll need a business process architecture. Same thing as in the reference models. You'll need a reference model or create them yourself. The business value we use here, these 4 questions, and the index or the weighting that we use here is something you could change and adapt to your organization. And when you are reaching this phase, you can start creating project proposals to change the application landscape. So a recap here, there's 4 phases. You can start out you have to start out on the lowest phase, or maybe your organization is already in a certain phase. You're already using capabilities and application function. You can just add the questionnaires to it, start adding the information to it, and then you'll be in that particular phase and reap the benefits of those phases. And other than that, it's a model where on all phases it will add value to the implementation of Blue Dolphin. So on every level, there's some value to be gotten, and so you can start out low and still reap some benefits. So that's the end of my webinar for now. If you want to talk to me about it personally, you can have what we call a speed date with me, a 15-minute call. Just send me a mail at this address. We welcome to join other webinars. There's one on 14 December about the recap of the features we've done so far this year. And then there's a roadmap session on 28th of January. You can check out our websites for the webinars. And then it's down to other questions we might have. Jelle, would you be so kind to, if there are questions, to read them out, and I'll try to answer them.
Yes, I will. The first question is from CP Mull. Can you add custom attributes to an application or to the questionnaires in the applications that we show?
Absolutely. Just to give you a little insight on that, any one of the tabs you see here, they can be extended with other questions or replaced with other questions. You can add more what we call questionnaires, so more tabs here with more information. So the system is fully extendable there.
Okay, perfect. And then there is a question from Mark. And Mark asked, how will you support a hybrid situation where you have both on-premise as well as off-premise or on-premise applications and off-premise services? How do you manage their life cycle? And I think the question related to the beginning of your application or your presentation, where you said we can, for example, read out a CMDB. So how do you get insight in that landscape, and how does it differ what you ask about a service compared to an application?
Yeah, well, I think some of the questions obviously can be answered whether the application is regardless of where the application is hosted, for example. Mm-hmm. I think for most of the question we asked here, it's not really relevant where the application is coming from or being hosted from. Certainly in hybrid situations, you have applications coming from all sides, basically, whether it be on premises, whether it be SaaS applications or hosted in data centers. So for APM, we try to create questions that are non-relevant where the hosting is not relevant. But with regards to how do you get them in your application list, your application system, and what we find in most organizations is that even applications which are not, let me say, under control of organization are still in an ITSM or are still known, or at least they are integrating with other applications. So that's one way of getting to know those applications. So it varies a little bit, but it doesn't certainly limit the things you can do on an application level with those with that information.
Mainly, it's maybe that you just focus a little bit less on the technical details of an application and more on its functionalities.
Yes. I mean, obviously, you would not be able to create a full solution architecture diagram for an external application, but I think you are able to, for example, create relations between applications that are within your control to draw them up in a solution architecture. You just don't know what service they run on and that kind of stuff. But apart from that, most of the stuff you can still use.
Yeah, and they still have functionalities and they are related to processes and capabilities. Yeah, and have a business risk. Okay. Clear. And I think to add some of my own answer to that, but if you have a more off-premise landscape, so cloud, it becomes even more important to integrate your application portfolio management with, for example, your process portfolio management or your process management. Because if you draw these applications as part of your processes, they will get known. You know what you are using in the business, and the options for scanning your applications or finding them in other systems are getting more limited as you're running on the cloud. But so that means that you really have to discover your application from a functional view. And I think the best way to do that is using process management, defining the applications in the steps in your processes, and use that to complete your application landscape. So the more different perspectives you can add to your application landscape, the more complete it will get. One more question, Tom, from Jeroen. How do you get from the questionnaires and the views in Blue Dolphin to one of the graphical views that you showed, I think, in Power BI?
Yeah, so you're referring to one of these, for example, this view or any other of the views. Well, the Power BI integration or integration with any other business intelligence tool is done using what we call an OData feed. So Blue Dolphin supplies an OData feed, which is a protocol to get data from a certain system. And using that data, we've created a calculation, basically, for example, for business risk or business value, and basically plotted that in here. But the data that we are using in these particular views are all coming from Blue Dolphin. So when I change some stuff in the Blue Dolphin, the data here gets refreshed. But how to do that, that's really beyond the scope of this particular webinar. But if you're interested, we could have a chat about that and see how you can set this up. This would also work for other use cases like project portfolio management or master data management or any other data that you have in Blue Dolphin and you want to visualize in a different way from outside, for example, conditional views in Blue Dolphin. Hopefully that answers the question.
I hope so too. I think it was a good explanation. More questions coming in. There are quite a lot, so I'll try to touch on every subject. There's a question from Chef, and he asked, how does the relation of application portfolio management to data management look like, since applications manage data and the data might be more stable than your applications?
Yeah, that's something that you want to touch on more of a subject of data management itself. But application portfolio management is about applications, obviously. So the way you would do it is you would create a data model, obviously, with data objects, and then assign those data objects to applications. So you know what data is contained or changed within those applications, and then you can have similar views or similar questions answered like the ones we have answered here on application functions versus applications, for example. I'm not sure what you want to go for. You could also include in some way data into this APM system. We haven't done that yet, but I'm thinking that you could, right? You could have that as a different layer, maybe a phase 5 or phase 6, maybe, by introducing data into your into the APM system, and then you could do rationalization and consolidation based on the combination of applications and data objects, for example. Like I said, we haven't.
I think that's enough for now. But yeah, the real short answer is indeed that you can relate it to the ERDs that we create in data modeling, and then you can connect your what Tom said, your data objects to your applications. You can say, okay, this application is authoritative for this type or this term of data. We can go really in depth. I think we can give another webinar of an hour about that. If you want to know more about that, feel free to contact us, and then we will happily give you a demo of it. And then I'm gonna do a last question. Which one shall I take? I'm gonna ask the one from Valerie. Valerie asks, are there more examples than the one you showed for determining the business value of applications? Could that also be done in other ways, and do we have examples?
Yeah, this is the way that we've set it up, obviously. And like I said, you can change both the calculations and questions for business risk as well as business value. So we're actually really looking forward to organizations where they say, well, this is the way we look at business value, and try to include that in the calculation that we have. The way that's been set up, obviously, is such a way that you can expand this level. You can expand it with other questions or new questions or additional questions. And then as long as you decide on a calculation, because we've now taken a standard calculation, but if you as an organization decide on the standard calculation, then you can use that as your business value. There's no official set way for it. We think that this is a setup that people can work with, and will get you some value. if you have more to add to that, then you can do that.
Okay, clear, Tom. Thank you. What I then want to do is I want to wrap up the webinar because we asked most questions. I think the important part was that we showed you a high-level overview for what we can do with application portfolio management. You can imagine that you have a lot of questions on how this would be applicable to your organization. So what we can do for your organization is we can schedule a quick follow-up call in which we address all your questions. We can make a specialized approach for your specific organization. You know the functionality now. We can create application overviews. We can add questions. We have conditional views. We have dashboards. Now it's time to customize this for your organization. So feel free to reach out. We will send out an email with all information that you need tomorrow with an evaluation in there. We would be very happy if you could fill that in. And also a link to schedule a meeting with us. You'll also get the slides and any other additional information. There was some question about additional information. We will send that to you. And then I really want to thank Tom for giving this webinar. And I want to thank all of you for your attention. And see you at our next webinar.
Yes, thank you a lot for your attendance and hope to see you soon in another webinar. Bye-bye.